We are supposed to be live. So again, because we're still testing the system, let me make sure that we are live by going here and clicking this. And seeing if there's any sound here. No, there is no sound. What is wrong this time? Let's see. Nothing coming, no sound. I've got this on. Let me see if it comes in here. Are we getting sound? No. Oh, that's right. I had to turn up this. Okay, we are getting sound. Good. Okay. Okay. And I see Surenji and Anil saying that the sound is fine. So thank you for the feedback. Somehow this got put on mute. And I wanted to leave it on mute during the lecture, but not in the beginning when I was testing. So, namaskar, namaste to all. Welcome to our Vedanta Society of Greater Houston in digital form, our digital temple. So let me begin, as always, with a chant. Om yo brahmanam vidadhati purvam yo vai vedangscha prahinoti tasmai tam hadevam atma buddhi prakasham mumukshur vai sharanamaham prapadye. We who seek liberation take refuge in that infinite light which illuminates the hearts of all, which is the source of infinite knowledge, and who is the source of the Creator Himself. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Let me do one more chant because of the present difficulties people are going through. A chant that's well known to most of you, perhaps all of you watching. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. May all beings everywhere see that which is auspicious. May all be freed from disease. May all beings be happy. May none be subject to misery. Om peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So the subject this morning is, what do we really need? What do we really need? Again, because of the pandemic we are going through, the subjects right now are in some way touching on the circumstances we're living through. And so, as I said last week in the Sunday lecture, and as many people have said, at a time like this, it's a time to come back to basics, a time to see what is it that we really need. There's so many things we think we need in life, but when they're taken away from us, some of the things taken away from us, we may find ourselves much better for them having been taken. Other things, yes, we really miss, but we find that we can live without them. And so I want to talk about the things that we really need in life, the things that we should focus on. It doesn't mean that what I'm going to talk about are the bare essentials and you shouldn't have anything else. No, I don't mean that. But the things that we need for a happy, fulfilled, ordinary life. And then we can see other things as extras. And at a time like this, it is a time for taking stock and seeing where my treasure is. Have I put my treasure in the wrong things? Things that are unstable, things that I can't control, things that are going to cause me misery when I can't control them. So, as I've said on occasion, one of the things that I learned from my first long stay in India. I'd been to India once for a month to get initiation into spiritual life in 1971, but I came back in 75 and lived in India for 7 years, living, of course, in ashramas. And at that time, life was much more primitive in India than it is now. Primitive from a technological standpoint, from the standpoint of modern comforts. Not primitive at all socially, culturally, but primitive technologically. And one of the things that I learned while I was there was how little we really need, how little is necessary for a good, happy, fulfilled life. As I've said on occasion, I would, when washing my clothes every day, as is done traditionally in India. Nowadays, some people have washing machines, but in those days, washing machines didn't exist in India. At least I never saw one, never heard of one. And so we would wash our clothes in a bucket of water every day, hang them on the line to dry. And I used to think, now here I am taking all of this time every day to wash my clothes in a bucket, bang them on the cement floor to shake whatever dirt was in them out, and then hang them up. And this I have to do every day, and it takes time. I used to use in the West a washing machine where I could save up clothes for a week in a laundry basket, then put a week's worth of laundry into the washing machine, wash it all at once, dry it in the machine, take it out, and I was done. So how was it that in that way and so many other ways, I had so many conveniences at my hand when I lived in the West? Here I don't have any of them. And yet here I always seemed to have plenty of time for everything. And there I was always in a rush, always behind, never had enough time. And it really was a puzzle to me. And I have to say it's still something of a puzzle, though I've understood it better than I did then. I've understood that the so-called modern conveniences, which were meant to save us time and to give us more leisure, have done just the opposite. They've made us expect instant gratification, that everything should happen like that. When the fax machine first came out, I remember how excited many people were that now we can communicate, send documents instantly. We don't have to wait for a week for the mail to deliver documents. We can send documents just like that and save so much time. We don't have to fold them, put them in an envelope, take them to the post office, just put it in the machine and it's done. But what did that mean as far as the savings of time? It meant no time was saved. It meant that now we expected everything to happen like that. There was no patience to wait for anything. Everything had to happen. So with email, so with texting. With texting, we can communicate with anyone instantly, anyone with a messaging sensitive telephone. Or a capable telephone. And so now we expect instant replies to our messages. So it's not that these things have given us more leisure. They've taken away all leisure. They've given us a sense that we have to have everything right now without any wait time, no downtime. So I remember when I was first getting into computers in 1991, I got my first computer. One of our devotees, who's now one of our monks, one of our swamis, Arupeshananda Swami, in Southern California. He gave me my first computer. And so then within a short time, I realized that I needed something a little more powerful. So I got another one. And then a friend came to me and said that he had just gotten the latest computer, which was a no-wait computer. It was a 486. I started with a 286. I bought a 386 to have more power. And now he had a 486, which was unimaginable power. And he said, this is known as a no-wait computer. It does everything instantly. But of course, what happened? Then, because it had more computing power, computer programmers could make more complex programs, much more complex programs. They could put more bells and whistles into their software. And so the software got bigger, more complex, more difficult for the computer to process, more time intensive, more processing intensive. And so soon a 486 wasn't enough. Then you needed a 586. It had to go to the Pentium. And then from the Pentium, we've gone up and up and up and up. And so all of our modern conveniences have really served to make us incapable of waiting, incapable of patience. And so, again, in India, I learned how little it is that we really need to be happy. So now this talk today is not going to be an appeal to poverty. I'm not saying that we should all go back and be poor. Get rid of your washing machines. Go buy a bucket, and we'll do everything the old way. No, it's not that. But it is an appeal not to poverty, but to contentment and happiness. An appeal to contentment and happiness. So let me answer a criticism, a potential criticism first, a criticism I have heard. In fact, first time I heard it was here in Texas, in Austin in 1983, I think it was. And that is that contentment seems to make us satisfied with the status quo. And if everyone were satisfied with the status quo, there would be no progress in life, no progress. And so how can we teach responsibly contentment when it's the opposite quality we need in order to improve life? So the status quo versus improvements in life, such as at the political social level, things such as civil rights, speaking in an American context, American social situations. Similar things have happened in India and in other countries, but speaking from the American perspective, the civil rights movement in the 1960s. If at that time we had said, and there were many people who did say, to the black communities, to the African American communities, that look, be patient, be patient. Progress is slow. The country is gradually growing. Don't push for all of these changes. The things will happen in their own time. Just be satisfied with what you've got, and gradually things will change. Just be satisfied, be content. No, that would have been a wrong instruction. As we know now, it was because people said, no, we want our place in the sun. We deserve equal rights. We are human beings just as anyone else is a human being. The color of our skin doesn't indicate character, intelligence, or anything else. And so we want to have an equal place in the sun. And that was the right thing to do, to struggle for civil rights. So with the long struggle for women's rights, if people had told women, as they did, that look, just be patient, just be content with what you've got. You don't have it that bad. Things are all right. And things will gradually change. Education is spreading. Attitudes will change of themselves. So just be patient. No, that would have been the wrong advice. It was because women struggled for equality, and that struggle is still going on. It's still going on. That women got the right to vote. It's shocking to think that the women's right to vote came only in, what was it, in 1918, 1920, somewhere, I forget the exact date, but somewhere around there, when the amendment to the Constitution gave women the right to vote. And so with workers' rights. When you think of the horrible condition of workers after the industrialization of society, in Europe, starting in England and spreading to Europe, and then in America also, the terrible abuse of workers, the terrible abuse of child laborers. If you read things like The Jungle, by who was it? Upton Sinclair, was that his? I always forget the names confused there, but I think it was Upton Sinclair, The Jungle, written about the conditions of the working class back at the early years of the 20th century. It's horrible, Horrible. And so again, we could say to the workers, look, just be content, be content. Don't worry about it. Things will change of themselves. No, that would have been a wrong advice. So again, this is not an appeal to the status quo. So with scientific advancements, with technological advancements, with medical advancements, now we see with COVID-19, though it has laid society prostrate for the time being, think of what would happen and what used to happen in society before the advancements of modern medicine. Think of what a heart attack means now. It's rare that someone dies of an actual heart attack, unless it's a massive heart attack. But heart attacks that used to kill now no longer kill because of the advances of cardiology. And so with so many things, and because of progressive lenses, I can see much better than I could have if I first of all had no lenses, and then the old-timey bifocals or trifocals. And so these advances that allow us to do more, to experience more, to have a better quality of life. So again, this is not an appeal to poverty nor an appeal to the status quo. Because progress seems, from all that I've just said, progress seems to be based on discontent. Discontent with the status quo. We progress because we're discontent, because we want something better, and so we're constantly moving towards that which is better. Good. But what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? That's not the whole picture. That means, as Swami Vivekananda used to say, that we have projected our fulfillment into the future. Someday we're going to get there. People, if you look back on futurists who predicted the future for 2000 and beyond, people back in the 60s and 70s who said how life will be in 2000 and beyond 2000 in the 21st century, which we're now living in, 20 years into the 21st century. It's unbelievable the things that they thought we would have. We would have flying cars. And yes, people have invented flying cars that can drive on the road, and then they can extend wings and they can fly. But who has them? We have not entered the world of the Jetsons yet. And so the idea of progress means that, no, the world is broken now, but go on fixing things, and eventually we'll come to a point where everything is fixed and we'll have a wonderful utopia, technological at least, a physical utopia of life, where everything is comfortable, all the problems are solved. I heard several years ago Bill Gates being interviewed, and he said something that only a well-educated person, a foolish person, a well-educated foolish person could say. He said, yes, there's still a few problems in the software of the world, but we're gradually fixing those. We're gradually fixing the bugs in the software of the world so that the world will be fixed. Well, that's ridiculous. You can't fix the world. There's no time when the world will be perfect. For all of our technological advancements, our social advancements, our advancement in human rights and so forth, people are not more happy now. Yes, there are a larger number of people who can lead a satisfactory life, and that's a good thing. But human happiness, no, that has eluded us. That has eluded us. And so progress seems to be based on discontent, but discontent itself contains the seeds of unhappiness within it. Swami Vivekananda said that the West had developed on the path of doing, and India had developed on the path of suffering. That is, knowing how to suffer circumstances, how to endure, how to bear with the circumstances, how to bear with the exigencies of life. Whereas in the West, the mode was to fix things. If something is broken, go out and fix it. If society isn't working, then do social engineering to fix society. If the political system isn't working, draw up a new political system and try that. So Swamiji said that both were experiments. But he said that the ideal society would be where we both are able to do and to suffer. Because the problem with doing, again, the problem with thinking that I can fix everything is that you can never fix everything. Everything will never be fixed. Fixing one thing breaks 3 more things. And so then you have to go fix those, and then you break 6 more things. And so by doing, you're always projecting happiness and fulfillment into the future. You're working on it now so that you can get there, and you never get there. But then also there's a problem with just learning to suffer in life, learning to endure, to endure the difficulties of life. There we find that the society becomes stagnant, and the things that we could fix, we don't fix, because the focus is on learning just how to bear circumstances. So having lived both East and West, I've seen the strengths and the weaknesses of both sides. I see the great strengths and the weaknesses of the doing culture, the fixing culture here. And I see in India the weakness with the enduring culture. If you have to choose one, the enduring culture brings more happiness, because contentment is the only path to happiness. But at the same time, I see in India, in our own order, which I'm most familiar with, the environment, ambience I'm most familiar with in India, that there are the little things that could be fixed so easily, and nobody does because they don't think to fix them. And so neither is a perfect picture. So people go on suffering the same thing over and over again just because they don't even think that, well, this could be fixed. Let me fix it. So neither is an ideal solution. So again, the solution, one way of thinking of this, the problem of contentment and discontent, etc., fixing things versus suffering things, is that for groups of society, groups within society, contentment is not always the best policy. For groups within society, like the suffrage movement among women, the movement for civil rights, the movement for workers' rights, there you're dealing with groups of people who are facing group discrimination. But in my personal life, let me learn to lead my personal life with a sense of contentment. Why? Because there's no other way to happiness. There's no other way to happiness. Without contentment, we're condemned to lead a life of frustration, struggle, without ever coming to final resolution. Yes, we fix one thing, but then by the time we fixed it, we see that there are 3 more problems coming towards us. We fix those, and then there are 6 more problems coming towards us. And life goes on from beginning to end that way. They say, the study after study has shown that people over 65 are much happier than younger people. Study after study has shown that. We usually think, especially in the West, where we idealize youth, we think that young people are happy, carefree. No, young people have all kinds of problems. Internal problems of insecurity, of trying to make a place for themselves, not sure if they can, struggling to make a place for themselves and everything. By the time you're 65 or more, you've done so much in life, you've suffered so much in life, you just sort of let go. And at least partially, compared to what you did when you were younger. And that brings greater happiness with age. You've learned so many things just aren't worth worrying over. It doesn't matter. Let them go. That is contentment. And that's why people over 65 are, in general, happier than young people. So contentment for individuals. Contentment should be internal and personal. There's a beautiful serenity prayer, which I'm sure most of you have heard. Some of you may know it. It's worth memorizing. It was a prayer written by Reinhold Niebuhr, who was an American theologian, a great theologian. He was considered one of the greatest thinkers in the 20th century, and a great orator, a great thinker, and a great theologian. His prayer is that, "Oh Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference." So again, "Oh Lord God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, So the things I can't change, and there's so many things in life that we can't change, give me the serenity to accept them and to deal with them. Yes, accept them doesn't mean become a victim of them, but it means to deal with them as they are, to accept them as they are, and then to deal with them the best I can. But to know that these are factors in life that are not given to me to change. But give me the courage to change the things that I can change, because there are things in life that I can change. Give me the courage to do that. And give me the wisdom to know the difference between these two, what I cannot change and what I can change. Give me the wisdom to know the difference. So contentment is an acceptance of the circumstances that come to me. Not, however, passive. That's the problem with the overemphasis on suffering, on just enduring. Yes, Holy Mother, Sri Ramakrishna, they both said in the Bengali alphabet there are 3 shas, and all of them say sha, 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 meaning endure, endure, endure. So for those of you who are not Bengali, you may wonder about 3 shas. That's because the 3 shas in the Sanskrit alphabet, Hindi, Gujarati, etc. But Bengalis pronounce all 3 of them the same. So as Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother said, there are 3 shas in the alphabet, but all of them say sha. That is, endure, endure. And so, yes, that's true. But there's a way to endure which is more helpful, and a way which makes us more a victim of experiences. That is, we can always work with the circumstances. Not to be passive victims, but to work with the circumstances. And so in that way, we can learn contentment and yet not be completely passive in the circumstances of life. Now, it's the usual attitude in the West to fight with circumstances. One of our acharyas in training center once gave an interesting image to us. He said there was a man walking down the beach with a big stick in his hand, and people had littered the beach with bottles that they had their drink from and thrown it on the beach. And so this man went down the beach with this big stick, breaking all of the bottles, one after another, just long, continuous walk on the beach, breaking bottles. Somebody came up to him and said, "Sir, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm breaking bottles." I said, "But why?" He said, "If I don't do it, who else is going to do it? I've got to do it." So much of our work is like that. If I don't go down the beach breaking bottles, who else is going to break bottles? And so we have the idea that I have to fix things in life. No, there are some things that I can fix, yes. But a lot of things in life I don't need to bother with. I don't need to take responsibility for fixing them. Many things in life we can let be. And so learning the wisdom of what to let go and what I need to work with, what I need in order to lead a normal, fulfilled life, what I can fix and what I need to fix. So we need to accept the circumstances that come to us and work with them. An image that I myself like, which I thought of after I heard this example of the man walking down the beach with a stick, is that in the West, our idea of time is that time is a path that I have to walk down. I'm responsible for walking on this path, and I have to make things happen as I'm walking because nobody else is going to do it. Like the man with the stick. If I don't break these bottles, who else is going to break them? So I've got to walk down the path of life, and I have to make things do it, and I have to be proactive. I have to get things done from an aggressive standpoint. But the traditional Indian way of dealing with time was that time was seen, and I'm not saying that I got this from a book, I got it from experience of life in India. Time is seen as a stream, a flowing stream which is carrying us forward. We're in the stream already. We don't have to create the stream. The movement is created by time itself. It's carrying us forward. And as the stream of time carries us forward, the different circumstances we meet. We meet a log jam. We meet a little island. We meet some sandbar. We meet an eddy, a whirlpool, different things that we meet along the way, maybe a waterfall. And we have to deal with those circumstances. but we're not responsible for creating the circumstances. We're responsible for dealing with them as they come up. And so it's in that way that we can practice contentment and yet do the things that we need to do in life without being just passive victims of life. So in advanced cases, of course, there is a deeper sense of contentment, which is contrary to all that I've just said, and that is just suffering everything and not caring about anything. Sri Ramakrishna talks about this. He says that the sattvic person, the very sattvic sadhaka, which is not us, I'm afraid. We're not yet there. We're trying to get there, but we're not yet there. But the sattvic sadhaka, if his door is blown off by the wind, he just puts a board up to keep the wolves out. That's enough. Just put a board up to keep the wolves out. That's all that you need. It doesn't need to go and hire the carpenter and have a beautiful door put in and then a painter come and paint it beautiful colors that we've selected from Home Depot or wherever. No, just put up a board and that's all that you need. So there is a state of contentment where you don't address any of the problems of life. You surrender completely to God. But that we can't just do because we want to do it. That happens because we've come to a certain state where that becomes possible, where any initiative no longer is possible. As Ramana Maharshi says, that the Mahatma, the sage, is one who makes no sankalpa, makes no intention. I'm going to do this. That doesn't come to his mind. It can't come to his mind anymore. For us, sankalpa is very important, to make an intention and to do things intentionally, that is, to do them consciously. That's why when we do a puja, we start with a sankalpa. We make an intention. I'm going to do this worship in this way for this purpose, for the growth of devotion and knowledge and for the welfare of all beings, is the purpose we in our Ramakrishna monasteries usually do our worship. But we state a conscious intention so that our work is conscious and directed towards a higher aim and not just unconscious doing things. But a time comes where none of that is needed. Then we can make no sankalpa, just that which the body and mind are led to do by the will of God. So that's the goal, but that's not the path. The path is the practice of surrender. But in the practice of surrender, we're not yet there. We try to do everything prayerfully, asking for God's guidance, asking for God's grace. To try to do things from a non-egocentric standpoint, but we still have to do things. If we say now in our present state of mind, say, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to wait for God to do everything. I'm not going to go get food. I'm not going to take care of anything. I'm not going to pay bills. I'm going to surrender completely to God and let God take care of it. We'll find that either we are institutionalized by concerned relatives, or we get so hungry that we have to get up and fix something, or the electricity and water are cut off and we find ourselves in a huge mess, and we find that, well, God is not doing things for us. That's because we're not yet able to surrender in a way so that God does take over. So in our state, we have to practice surrender internally, accepting circumstances, doing the best I can, but doing it prayerfully, saying, oh, Mother, I don't know what is best to do. You please direct my decision. I have to decide because the choice is given to me and I can't wait. The choice is there and I have to go this way or that way. I don't know which is best. So you please guide my step. But then we choose. But we do it with an idea of surrender. So in that way, we practice surrender. So part of learning contentment is just this recognition that I cannot fix the world. The world is much bigger than I am. I can't fix it. And so let me stop trying. And so now let me come to, in the remaining time, let me come to the things that we really need. Contentment, of course, is sort of a background. But I wanted to talk about that because the idea of contentment, again, brings up this criticism that, well, you just want to perpetuate the status quo, and in that way, there's no improvement of life. We just become victims of circumstances. No, that's not the idea. So what we need, what do we really need? One thing, we need the basics of life. We need food, we need water, we need shelter. We need the basics of physical and social life because we can't live without those things. A person who is grindingly poor. They are in the unfortunate situation of being consumed with trying just to survive. What time does such a person have to think of God and higher things? They're just surviving. I've seen even among some of the traditional sadhus in India, some who are very poor, who have nothing, who go from place to place begging. If a person is already advanced, that can be a wonderful life and a legitimate type of spiritual life. For many, it's just a very difficult life of respectful beggary. I've seen sadhus that could come to Belar Mutt because Belar Mutt is, nowadays, it's fairly prosperous. So they're hoping to get handouts of old dhotis and other things. But they lead a life of grinding poverty, some of these sadhus. They don't do any work, so they have no income. But they spend all of their time just trying to get some food, some shelter, just the basics of life, just some clothes to replace the rags that they're wearing. And so if we don't have the basics of life, then our life is consumed with just trying to survive. So we need the basics of life. That's a reality. And that was recognized in the Hindu Dharma from ancient times, from Vedic times. From the beginning of the Vedas. It was recognized, later it was formalized into the four purusharthas, the four goals of life. So kama, legitimate sense desire, sense fulfillment, and artha, legitimate possession. Those are actual human needs. And those are legitimate as long as they are done, engaged in, procured dharmically, morally. But one thing that we don't need, and we have too much of today in this field of getting the necessities that we need, is consumerism. Consumerism is a disease of the modern world. And it's a travesty that citizens of a country like the United States are now known as consumers, not primarily as citizens. 150 years ago, that would have, even 120 years ago, that would have disturbed people terribly to think that we are spoken of as consumers. It's only in the 20th century that we came to be seen as consumers. After the end of the Civil War in the United States, there was this tremendous energy which was released into society because the struggle between the North and the South had ended in defeat of the South, success of the North, and then the reunification of the country. And as often happens after a major tragedy like that, there's a great release of pent-up energy that had been going into the war effort, which had been going into hatred, which had been going into animosity. Now it was released. And so suddenly there was a growth of commercial society in the United States. But what really changed and made us a consumer society was in the 20th century, the early 1900s, when a nephew of Sigmund Freud, Edward Bernays, came from Switzerland to the United States, and he began the process of turning Americans into consumers. It was found that before his time, if you needed a piece of clothing, you just went and got a piece of clothing. It was a practical necessity. But then they found that no, if we can put style, the element of style into clothing, so that we sell people clothing that they don't need, but clothing that they want because it's beautiful and makes them more beautiful. Then suddenly it was discovered that through advertising, we can create needs in people where there was no need before. We can create discontent so that people think, if I have this, I'll be happier. And so he developed modern advertising, the strategy of making people consumers, making people want things that they didn't even know they needed. And so that we as spiritual aspirants, we have to consciously fight against consumer culture. It doesn't mean that we may not need things. Yes, we may want nice things. Yes, that's okay. But this excess of consumer culture, that has to be consciously fought against. Anyone who's interested, I recommend highly a documentary series that you can get on YouTube called The Century of the Self. It's the story of Edward Bernays and his advertising successes. It's an amazing story, and it gives you a glimpse into the creation of consumer society. So we need the basics of normal life. But we also need something more than the basics of life. If we have the basics of life, we have food, we've got clothing, we've got shelter. But then what? Then what? That was the question of the existentialist philosophers of the mid-20th century. Then what? We need meaning. We need purpose in life. That's the central thing that we need beyond the necessities. We need a purpose in life. Many people find a purpose in family, in society, in work, career, and everything. Those are all good. Those are good things. There's nothing wrong with them. But they're not enough. As we see at times like this pandemic, they're not enough. So we need to find a deeper purpose in life. Along with the meaning and purpose, we need understanding. And so knowledge is a real purushartha. It's not mentioned among the 4 purusharthas, but knowledge is a purushartha. That is a goal of human life, to understand. It doesn't have to be through schooling. It doesn't have to be through education. It doesn't even have to be through literacy, though literacy, of course, is good. But the great, great people who have been illiterate. And so it's not dependent on literacy, but we need understanding. Who am I? What is all of this? What is my relationship to this? Who are all of these other people? What is my relationship to them? What is my responsibility to them? And so knowledge begins to expand our circle of understanding so that our world becomes bigger and bigger. Our circle of understanding, our circle of connection becomes larger and larger and larger. So knowledge is something which is a human need also, and that we continue learning as long as we live. As long as I live, so long do I learn, the famous saying which Sri Ramakrishna himself used to say also. So we need knowledge and understanding. We also need wisdom, which is higher than knowledge and understanding. Wisdom connects understanding to the purpose of life. Wisdom sees knowledge and understanding in a context where everything is tied and related towards something higher, towards a higher purpose in life. And so the higher purpose in life, the meaning, deeper meaning of life, there we come to the 4th human goal, according to traditional Hinduism, purushartha, of moksha, liberation. So whether you think in terms of moksha, whether you think in terms of realizing God, whether you think in terms of coming to God, surrender to God, self-knowledge, enlightenment, however you think of it, that we need also. We need that as a purpose in life. So the meaning and the purpose of life. We also need another purushartha, dharma. It took me a long time to understand why dharma, which is larger than morality, much larger than the word morality or ethics. Why dharma is the proper way of living, the proper way of relating to the world, the proper way of relating to the physical world, proper way of relating to the social human world, to the animal world, plant world, the proper way of relating to the divine world. Dharma includes all of that, the proper way of relating as a human being to the world in which I live. That is a comprehensive definition of dharma, which I just now came up with. I never thought of that before, but that's the advantage of having to express oneself. So dharma, as I said, I had in the beginning difficulty understanding how could that be a purushartha. Yes, morality has to control life, but most people don't go around thinking, I wish I had dharma. I wish I were moral. No. But then I saw, no, that is a universal desire of people. Even the murderer tries to explain himself or herself, saying, well, I had to murder that person because they were so bad. I had to get rid of them. It was necessary. I stole because those people don't deserve wealth. I want to go out and break the system. I was right to do it. So even a criminal tries to justify what they do and why they did it. because everybody wants to be seen as right. And to be right means to be dharmic. And so it is a universal purushartha. So dharma is one of the things that we need, a deep moral sense, a sense of how to, and this partly comes through knowledge, through understanding, and it comes through experience. And that knowledge joined to experience leads to wisdom. Again, how to relate knowledge to reality, to the outer world, to the inner world, and to the spiritual world. And so dharma comes through the dharma sense. The understanding of dharma comes through that, through experience joined with knowledge. And then there are internal conditions of mind we need in order to be happy. We need a sense of harmony. There was the pre-dharma concept in the Vedas of ritam. Ritam varishyami, satyam varishyami. I will speak that which is right. I will speak that which is true. So ritam is sometimes another term for truth in the Vedas, but the idea of ritam is much more expansive than the idea of truth. There's nothing wrong with the idea of truth. That's a fundamental concept. But ritam includes more than just truth. Ritam means being in harmony with the nature of the universe. Later, ritam was replaced by the concept of dharma in classical Hinduism up to the present day. But the original idea of ritam is interesting because it's actually a richer term than dharma. The ritam means being in tune with the nature of the universe. It's like the Chinese term Dao, the Dao, being in tune with the Tao, which is often translated as the way. And so ritam is like that, a concept that there is a moral, fundamental moral nature to the universe, a spiritual and moral nature to the universe, and I have to be in tune with that in order to be in harmony with the universe. And so I have to find harmony between myself and society, harmony between myself and the natural world, harmony between myself and the spiritual world. That also is ritam. Dharma came to be more identified with the that which is right and moral and true, and ritam taking that and adding the sense that the universe is built in such a way that being in tune with its harmonious nature makes me harmonious, and the harmony of the universe is expressed as ritam. So I need a sense of harmony. I can't ever expect society around me to be perfectly harmonious, nor for society to be harmonious towards me. But I can be harmonious towards it. I can be harmonious towards the whole world, even if the world turns against me. I can maintain my sense of harmony. So that's also a human need. One of the things that helps, is not the biggest thing, but one of the things that helps us to develop a sense of ritam and a sense of inner harmony is just to develop some sort of rhythmical schedule to life. It's very helpful. That's one of the beauties of monastic life or ashram life, is that it gives us a schedule that we put our life into tune with, and we find that it gives a rhythm to the day. It gives a rhythm to the day, so it's easier to do the things that we need to do just because, well, now it's time to do this, and now it's time for that, now it's time for this, now it's time for that, now it's time for this. So it gives a rhythm. We can do that in our own lives, in our own home life, to add a sense of rhythm. By having a meaningful schedule to our life. Another thing on the internal conditions of mind that we need. So again, there was the basics of normal life, the meaning and purpose of life, which includes knowledge, wisdom, the highest purpose, then the moral sense of dharma, then the internal conditions of mind, which includes the sense of harmony, then also the practice of detachment. We can't lead a normal, happy life without detachment. And at times like this, in the pandemic, detachment is wrested from us. It's forced on us. Things are taken away from us that we don't want taken away, things that we're not detached from. And so let us consciously practice detachment. Yes, use the things that you need, have the things that you need, but don't be possessed by the things. And at times like this, even if it's difficult, even if it's painful, as it is for many people, look on the present circumstances as an opportunity to do without all of the things that I normally think I need, and to feel thereby free. To feel free because I find that I don't need all of the things I thought I did. So detachment means the ability to let go, the ability to let go. Yes, again, use things when you need them, enjoy things as you need them, but have the ability to let go when you need to. Another thing that we need is the experience of love. Everyone seeks love in life. Some people may be afraid of afraid of love, but everyone needs love. Everyone except for a sociopath. And that is a disease, a very serious disease. But others need the experience of love. And so we get that from family. We get it from friends. Those are good. Those are very good. Spiritual life should not make us hate family and friends. It doesn't need to. But eventually we find that even there, the love found there is not sufficient. That the only place where love is sufficient is found in God. And that's not easy to find, but that makes it a project worth a lifetime of effort. Because it's not easy, let me dedicate part of my life, as much as I can, as much as I'm capable of, seeking the love of God, seeking to love God and to experience the love of God. The love of God is already there, but we're not open to it, and so we don't feel it. So let me make this a project of my life, to grow in love of God. Because I'm convinced from reading the scriptures, from reading the teachings of great saints, and seeing the lives of great saints, that only there am I going to find the full experience of all satisfying love. Every other love falls short. It may be good, it may be nice, but it falls short. And all of those other loves will be taken away from us at death. When we're separated from loved ones, separated from friends, all of that is gone, completely gone. But the love of God never leaves. And so, if we learn to love family and friends, that's good. From there, let us expand the circle of our love and universalize it and begin to try to feel love for humanity itself. And then expand beyond humanity even. Feel love for the whole universe. Feel love for the universe itself. Let us grow and expand, not by getting rid of love for family and friends. No, expanding it so that we're not just loving family and friends. We love more and more of the universe because love is its own reward. And we expand in that direction, you could say the horizontal direction, and then we expand our love in the vertical direction, towards God, towards the divine. So these two directions we have to expand our love. The Vaishnavas said that there's a Panchama Purushartha. They are the four Purusharthas of Dharma, Kama, Artha, Moksha, which we've touched on all of those. Dharma, legitimate sense desire, legitimate possession, and liberation, the goal, the ultimate goal of life. But the Vaishnava said there's a fifth, Panchama Purushartha, and that is prema, love, divine love. And so let us seek that, the experience of love, and we'll eventually find that that desire for love is only satisfied fully in God. Every other love falls far short of that. And so that doesn't mean we don't love anything but God. It means that our love for God begins to eclipse other loves, and then our other loves are consumed in that love of God, so that when we love other people, including loving family, we do it through the love of God. We do it combined with the love of God, and not in contrast to it. And so these are some of the things that we really need in life. We need the basics of a normal life. And so provide for yourself and provide for those who are dependent on you. Sri Ramakrishna had no patience for those who didn't take care of their families, like Hajra. his own relative Hajra from the village, who would come and stay in Dakshineshwar, not do any work, and not send any money back for his family, his wife and children. Sri Ramakrishna scolded him severely. He said, "What, are your wife and children to depend on the neighbors? You're not going to provide for them." So yes, we need the basics of life. We need to know the meaning of life. We need knowledge and understanding and wisdom. We need to have a deep moral sense, which again is not a list of do's and don'ts. It's a sense of rightness of action, doing the right thing at the right time. And then we need to cultivate the mind. And cultivating the mind, we need to develop a sense of harmony, the sense of ritam. We need detachment. We need sympathy and compassion for others. And we need contentment. Coming back, I should add that in because that's what we started with. We need to develop the power of contentment, to accept the circumstances of my life and to work with them, yes, but to accept them. And from that standpoint of acceptance, to work with them. And then the experience of love. And so I will end with that. Let me see if I can, if there's any question, if anyone wants to write in a question, they can. I'll wait for a few seconds for that. And if there are no questions, then I will close with a chant. So I wish everyone a good, safe time, a healthy time. That's another thing that we need, to the extent that it's given to us, is health, good health. And if we're not given health, if the circumstances of our life don't give us health, then that itself becomes our tapasya, our austerity. So if we can improve our health, let us do that. If that's out of our hand, if it's one of the circumstances we can't take care of, then let me make that one of my austerities, something that I offer to God, that the patience in the midst of my suffering, that also is my worship to God. Let me make that as my worship. And so I don't see any questions, and that's all right. So I will close with a chant. But before that, let me give announcements. The announcements are on Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. we will have the Gita class. On Thursday at 11 in the morning, we will have live streamed Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna class. And next Sunday, we will have a lecture, though I haven't thought of a topic yet. And so we'll continue like this, at least through the month of May and maybe beyond. We're thinking of opening the center slowly. My quarantine ends on Tuesday. So after that, from Tuesday on, if people want to come to the temple in family groups, 1, 2, 3 people, to make pranam, then that will be fine. But we want to still continue social isolation, doing it with proper protocol, because we don't want this to become a center of infection, of course. Let us infect people with love of God and with spirituality, not with coronavirus. And so after I'm out of quarantine, if people want to come just to make pranam at the center, but we won't yet open the classes and lectures for people to come and attend here in groups. So just if people want to come to the center, make pranam in the shrine, that will be fine from Tuesday forward. And then as we learn more about the situation and how things are going, we will gradually open up the center and begin classes again. But there's no date fixed for that, and we can't yet fix one. So with that, let me wish you all well and give a closing chant. Om madhuvatarithayate madhuksharanti sindhavaha madhvirna santoshadhi madhunaktamutoshasi madhumat parthiva rajaha madhudyorastu nafpita madhumandho vanaspatir madhumagumastu suryaha madhvirgavo bhavantunaha Om Madhu, Om Madhu, Om Madhu. For us who seek the truth, and for all living beings, may the winds blow sweetly. May the rivers flow sweetly. May the herbs yield us sweetness. Sweet be the night and the break of day. Sweet be the very dust of the earth. May the heavens pour down sweetness upon us. May the trees, lords of the forest, bear us sweetness. May the sun shed its sweetness upon us. May all the directions pour forth sweetness. Om, sweetness, sweetness, sweetness.